Boyfriend's unsettling relationship with his mother started revealing dark signs, whispering about an unthinkable secret I can't ignore. My boyfriend, 23 male, and I, 22F, have been dating for 6 months now, but we've known each other as friends for 3 years prior to that. I'm currently pregnant, and while my boyfriend has been an extraordinarily supportive partner, there have been unsettling things happening with his mother that shake me to my core, enough that I've started to question not only my relationship, but also this pregnancy. For the past 4 months, I've basically been living with my boyfriend and his mother. It's her house, and I sleep there every single night. She's a single mother in her 60s, and ever since her divorce, when my boyfriend was just a kid, around 7, she's been caught in a rut of depression, never truly moving on. She still cries about the divorce, the infidelity, and the fact that his dad remarried. She doesn't date, hasn't since that divorce. My boyfriend once confided in me that, especially during arguments, she'll lash out with, "You're just like your father, you don't care about me." The resemblance between my boyfriend and his father is uncanny. He's like his dad's mirror image. It's almost like she projects her heartbreak and resentment onto my boyfriend. When we first started dating, he'd joke that his mother is jealous and misses spending time with him. He claims she's like this with all his exes. And true, I see it in the way she never really tries to talk to me. She keeps to herself, locked away in her room whenever she's home. He assures me she likes me, and she's always polite, but my gut has been screaming at me that something is very, very off. For example, several times when we grab food and ask if she wants anything, she'll say no. But when we return, she'll shoot him a text or say to him in person that we only care about ourselves and not her. I picked up on these red flags early, but I ignored them. But then things started getting weirder, far, far weirder. One Saturday morning, things felt normal. We woke up, went through our little morning routines, and settled down for a couple games on the PS5, like we always do on weekends. Pregnancy has been making me so tired, so after a bit I told him I needed a nap. He decided to make me breakfast while I slept, so I laid down as he left the room. I could hear, because her door is loud and creaky, that he went straight into his mother's bedroom, the door slamming shut. It wasn't unusual, he visits her frequently for long, closed-door conversations. I'm a heavy sleeper, so I didn't think twice and dozed off. I don't know how long I slept, but I jerked awake to an extremely loud banging against the wall, as if something heavy was being slammed repeatedly. Then I heard the door open and my boyfriend's voice. It sounded like he said, "Oh so you." Then maybe, "Oh so you wanna be bad, huh?" The banging continued, now in the hallway right outside our bedroom door. Then, I heard a low mumbling that was uncannily similar to the way he speaks to me during sex. I just froze. I listened, absolutely confused, and swore I heard what sounded like his mom gasp. Pure fear and confusion left me sitting up in bed, listening. It sounded like sex noises, there's just no other way to describe them. I got up, dragged myself over to the TV, which sits next to the door, and muted it so I could hear better. Right then, the banging stopped, dead, as if someone realized I was awake. I heard them shuffling, and then his mother said, "Lie," and he replied, "Yes ma'am." He went downstairs for a few minutes. Soon after, he returned to me with just a bowl of cereal, which was odd. He always makes a full breakfast with pancakes, bacon, eggs, and hash browns. Shaken, I straight up asked what the noises were. He looked nervous, claimed he was just arguing with his mom. He said the argument was about a Christmas present, but he couldn't keep his story straight. He started stuttering and pacing around the room. When I pressed on about whether something physical happened, he was adamant that it was just an argument, that he didn't know what I was talking about. Shaken and deeply disturbed, I persisted, asking if he was moving furniture or what, because the noise was so loud. He just mumbled, "I am filled with regret," quietly to himself. After about an hour of circular conversation, I had to let it go because I felt like I was losing my mind. What I heard haunted me, but I refused to believe the most disturbing possibility, that something twisted could be happening, especially right next door to me, right while I was sleeping, pregnant. That night, I tried once more to ask gently if something else happened, hinting that if it was a physical fight, he shouldn't be scared to tell me. He acted flippant, asking if I wanted him to check with his mom about whether they hit each other. He literally went to her room and asked. When he came back, he said, "My mom says it's just pregnancy hormones and that you're overthinking." She texted me, "We don't live like that." He made sure I saw the message. I took a day to process, replaying the sounds and words in my head, and decided I'm not crazy. I know what I heard. I started remembering other odd incidents. I overheard him once say to his mom as he followed her up the stairs, "I can still feel around," and she just laughed. Another time, I heard the unmistakable sound of clapping coming from her room while he was supposed to be talking to her. I distinctly remember them in the kitchen, half arguing, and him saying in this almost desperate voice, "I'm trying my best. How can I be better for you?" It sounded more like relationship talk than something between a mother and son. My boyfriend even once told me that when he was a child, a doctor suspected his mother of molesting him, because she had wrapped her hair around his penis. Now that it's occurred to me, I think the banging and weird noises are frequent when they're in her room or even downstairs, supposedly arguing or talking for long stretches. His mother constantly texts him, wanting to know where he is, demanding his attention all day, every day. Once, when he offered to make me breakfast, another time, not the incident, I fell back asleep, nothing happened, but it feels relevant now. I am reeling. I've never felt this disturbed or trapped. I'm questioning everything about my relationship and what kind of environment I might be bringing a child into. I wish what I'm thinking wasn't true, but my gut just won't let this go. I woke up that day to him coming back into the room, freshly showered with only a towel wrapped around his waist. What caught me off guard was that he didn't have breakfast for me, which was strange, because whenever he says he's going to make me breakfast, he always goes straight to the kitchen, makes it, and wakes me with the smell. He never showers at that time of day either, so my mind immediately started spinning, especially after everything else I had started to notice. With all the odd things I've heard lately, a possibility flickered through my mind that maybe he'd been in his mother's room. One time, I overheard his mother going downstairs while he was in the kitchen, and he must have thought I was asleep. I heard him call out, "Come on, Mom," to which she just laughed and walked away. He kept calling her to come back, and she replied, "Not tonight, dear." The way it sounded, his tone, her playful dismissal, I can't shake the feeling that maybe he was asking her for something more than just company. Could he have actually been asking his own mother for an inappropriate relationship? It has now been a couple of weeks since I heard those unbelievably loud banging noises. The memory of it replays in my mind every single day. From the start, his mother's presence has always made me uncomfortable. Her vibes have been off-putting from day one. But after hearing how they interacted in those moments, and picking up on all these strange details, my discomfort has shifted into full-blown paranoia and unease about what might be going on between them. Unable to push it aside any longer, I pressed my boyfriend once more. I told him outright that what I heard sounded deeply wrong, like something sexual was happening between him and his mother. We fought about it, for 2 days straight. He insists up and down that nothing about his relationship with his mother is strange, and both he and his mom feign ignorance over any loud noises. How is that even possible when the sounds were coming from the exact location where I heard both their voices? He's tried to explain it away a dozen different ways, the dog, neighbors, footsteps, but after living here for 4 months, I know all the usual noises inside and out. This was nothing like that. I regret not opening that door right then to get irrefutable proof, because now I feel trapped in this twisted uncertainty, convinced I'm being lied to. I even started doubting my own sanity. Could this truly be happening? But the details, the sounds, the context, they were all too clear. The pieces keep falling into place, and I'm at a terrifying crossroads where I truly don't know what to do. Today, something else happened that pushed me to my breaking point. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but every detail just makes everything feel more real. I was feeling nauseous, so we were just hanging out together, and I noticed him and his mother were texting each other back and forth a lot, more than usual. Then, he told me he'd go make me some soup. It's a packaged soup, it should only take about 5 minutes, yet he was downstairs for nearly 40 minutes. As he left, I swore I heard her door open and quietly close, a huge contrast to her usual way of swinging it open loudly, making the whole floor creak. She also has typically loud footsteps, but I didn't hear her head down the stairs at all, almost as if she were sneaking. Banging noises came from downstairs while he was still down there. I told myself it was just him cleaning or fumbling around while making the soup. But when he finally came back up, after such a long wait, he seemed nervous and flustered, making up shaky excuses that didn't quite make sense. He didn't mention his mother being downstairs with him. When I asked if he was talking to someone, he hesitantly admitted, "Yeah, my mom." Then suddenly, he turned everything around on me, calling me paranoid and acting like he thinks I'm hearing things. I hadn't even mentioned his mom or the noises. That defensiveness, that projection, just fueled my suspicions even more. To me, it felt like the actions of someone guilty, someone caught doing something they shouldn't. Right now, I can't trust him when it comes to his mother. I feel completely disturbed, exhausted, horrified, and lost. Deep down, my instincts are on overdrive, warning me that something is very, very wrong here. No matter how shocking it all sounds, I know what I heard. I can't keep ignoring these signs or trying to rationalize them away. The possibility that there's an inappropriate relationship between my boyfriend and his mother is now impossible to dismiss. To make everything even more unbearable, I'm 3 months pregnant. I never wanted to be a single mother or to raise a child in a fractured home. But if my boyfriend is wrapped up in a sick relationship with his mother, who's to say he wouldn't do the same horrible things to our own child someday? The thought alone makes me feel physically sick. Now, I'm seriously considering ending this pregnancy and leaving him for good. I can't tell if I'm overreacting or if my fears are justified, but my gut has never screamed at me like this before. Am I losing my mind, or is something truly sinister going on right under my nose? What do I do? Update 1. People have often questioned why I never step foot in the kitchen or prepare food myself. It's not because I'm lazy. In fact, I love cooking and would gladly make meals for myself and my boyfriend, but he would never allow me into the kitchen, always insisting he was embarrassed by the state of it. No matter how many times I volunteered to cook, he refused. One day, curiosity got the better of me. While he and his mother were both at work, I decided to peek into the kitchen to find out the real reason behind all the secrecy. What I found made everything clear: the kitchen was a disaster. Dishes were stacked and overflowing in the sink, cabinet doors were hanging off their hinges. Clutter was everywhere, and there was dog piss on the floor. I understood immediately why no one wanted me to see it. But what about the rest of the house? It's tiny, cramped, and perpetually messy. His mother never does a thing around the house, and after a while, he gave up trying to keep things tidy too, since she and the dog just undid all his efforts. Downstairs is just the kitchen, bathroom, and a living room that no one ever used. The only reason I ever went downstairs was to use the bathroom. Otherwise, we lived exclusively in his bedroom, the only space that was even remotely livable. But there were deeper issues than clutter and mess. I had a gnawing suspicion that something was off between him and his mother, especially after a particular day when I heard unsettling banging noises. I confronted him outright, telling him that, based on what I had heard, it sounded like they were having sex. I told him that if something so disturbing was actually going on, he'd been a victim since he was a child, and I was willing to help him get professional help, but he needed to understand just how sick it was. Whether sexual or not, their relationship was clearly emotionally incestuous, and I warned him that he had to do something or he would lose me forever. I broke down and told him how much I empathized and pitied him if this horror was his reality, and as someone who's also endured childhood sexual abuse, I needed him to see just what kind of situation he dragged me into. A girl who just fell in love with him and walked straight into a nightmare without any warning. He never outright admitted that something happened that day, but his words and behavior suggested he was being manipulated by his own mother. If I was just paranoid, I told him I'd willingly get help or even check myself into a hospital, but he always told me, "You're not crazy, I don't think you're crazy." These talks often ended with him in tears, admitting he was probably traumatized by his mother, calling her sick, and telling me he wanted nothing more than to get away from her. Every time we had this conversation, his face looked haunted and broken. He'd get anxious, his breath would hitch, his speech would falter, everything about him in these moments screamed trauma. He told me once, "I'll tell you more about my mother and my childhood when we're out of here." Maybe it was just too much for him to talk about when we were still trapped under her roof. All these signs felt like subtle confirmations of what I feared. Since those painful conversations, I noticed him pulling away from her. He'd leave the bedroom door wide open when he left the room, encouraged me to go wherever I needed in the house, and reassured me that he wanted my trust. He constantly showed how much he loved me and didn't want to lose me over all this, backing up his words with real action. Most importantly, he threw himself into our plan to move out. And yes, I'm still pregnant. For a long time, the trauma and depression hovered over me like a cloud. I actually scheduled an appointment to terminate the pregnancy, the only available slot falling on the final legal day in my state, 2 hours from home. By some twist of fate, I missed that appointment. Looking back, it feels almost like the universe intervened. Now, with some distance from all the chaos, my mental health has improved, and I've grown to love my baby boy. I made it clear to my boyfriend that his mother could never, ever be around my child, and he agreed, another small confirmation for me. Now, we've moved out and have been finding our footing in our own place for about 2 weeks. I haven't brought up the situation again. We're busy settling in and I want to give him time, but I do hope that, away from her toxic presence, he'll be able to open up and we can seek the help we both need. But before we moved out, her behavior grew even more disturbing. On 2 separate dinner outings with her, I couldn't believe the inappropriate things she said. My boyfriend mentioned how his food was always different at this particular restaurant, and she replied, "Every time I come it's different." Gross. On the car ride to dinner, as we discussed how he used to have 2 jobs but had to quit one to have more free time, she chimed in, "No time for sex." And she even made a comment about how the seat warmers felt on his balls. It was beyond uncomfortable, just ew. A couple days before we officially left, she sent him a nasty, jealousy-ridden text message. He read it aloud and showed it to me. She hurled insults, sarcastically wished us our happily ever after, hoped our baby wouldn't have any issues, so fucking nasty, called us selfish and horrible, and declared she never wanted to see him again. Clearly, she was lashing out, jealous and furious that her son was leaving her afterward to live his own life. Remember, this is a woman in her 60s, acting like a jealous lover, not a mother. It's simply despicable. On our last trip to the old house to pack, I witnessed one final, deeply unsettling interaction. I honestly think she was trying to lure him away from me for sex. He was gathering things downstairs, with the bedroom door wide open, and as he headed back up, she emerged from her room. He told her he was leaving, and she asked, "Why didn't you wake me up?" Innocent enough, maybe. But then she pressed about whether he'd walk the dog, like she wanted time alone with him. Then I heard her coax, asking if he'd hang out for old time's sake. He refused. She started mumbling, and I heard the word cuddle, followed by her pleading, "Real quick, just 5 seconds, please." When I heard her say, "You're never coming back," there was so much sadness in her voice that it chilled me. The words echoed down the hallway, unsettling and heavy. When he came back into the room, I could see how visibly uncomfortable he was, his face flushed, his posture stiff. The whole energy of the house shifted, became charged and strange. I couldn't shake the feeling that something unspoken, something not so innocent had just happened between them. It was clear as day to me, he wanted nothing more than to get away from her. I walked out into the hallway and found her still standing there, lingering like some shadowy figure, as if she were waiting for another chance to catch him alone. It was unnerving, like witnessing someone waiting to pounce. I stepped in, told her I'd go walk the dog with him, making sure he wouldn't have to be alone with her for a second. As soon as we were outside, it felt like a release. We walked the dog in silence, just trying to breathe and be away from that oppressive energy. We loaded our things into the car, and finally, we got out of there. Dealing with all this has been impossibly hard. Despite everything, I've chosen to move forward with him. I see how much effort he's putting into making me feel safe and secure. I truly believe he now sees just how warped his relationship with his mother is. My heart aches for him. I can tell he's been wounded by all this. He's not at fault, he's a victim too, scarred by years under her control. Even after the short time I've been exposed to her, I feel scarred myself. I can't imagine what he's endured all these years. All I want now is to move past this, to never have to deal with this toxic woman or her manipulations again. I want to help him heal, so that we can finally focus on our own family, in peace, far away from her shadow. Update 2. The first thing I noticed about our new place was the quiet. Not the kind of quiet you get with noise-canceling headphones, more like empty house quiet, where you can hear the ice maker sigh and the upstairs neighbor's pipes click. It felt like a soundstage at first. No creaking bedroom door. No dog claws scrabbling on linoleum. No constant 12-ton presence pressing on my chest. Just a worn beige carpet and a curtain rod that came with the lease, and our 2 toothbrushes in the same cup. The second night here, I woke up to him standing in the hallway staring at the open bedroom door like it was a cliff. He wasn't fully awake. "It's fine," I whispered. "You can close it." He shut it and climbed back in, and I felt him exhale like he'd been holding his breath for years. He agreed to therapy. It was my OB social worker who pushed us through a waitlist and found him someone who actually had experience with this specific kind of thing. He came home from his intake with eyes so red I thought he'd rubbed them raw. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just sat at the edge of the couch, took my hand, and placed it on his chest so I could feel how hard his heart was thudding. Later, in a voice that cracked like ice when you step on it, he said, he called it abuse. He kept repeating it like the sound of the word might rearrange his bones. He said it out loud, he whispered. I didn't have to say it first. The therapist told him to expect a pull. That's what he called it. That itch under the skin to go back to what's familiar, even when familiar is rot. We didn't get 3 days before it started. It was small at first, unknown number calls that hung up on the second ring, then a voicemail with just breathing and the TV in the background. We didn't have her number saved anymore, but I know the sound of her shows. I know the cadence of commercials in her house because they were the background radiation of my life there. He blocked it, and we tried to fold baby laundry on the living room floor and talk about paint colors like it was any other Tuesday in any other couple's first apartment. Then she started texting me from a random Facebook account with a stock photo for a profile picture. She said she just wanted to make sure her boy was eating and how's my baby? My stomach dropped. I stared at the words my baby until they blurred. I showed him, and he went quiet in that way where I can feel him leave the room without moving. He took my phone, hit report, and said, we need paper between us and her. We went to the courthouse with a folder I had filled like a lunatic, screenshots of the nasty goodbye text she sent him before we moved, the creepy innuendos she'd let slip in front of me, the call logs, the weird Facebook account, everything I'd written down in my notes, app about the things I'd heard and the dates. We both wore the only formal clothes we own. He read the statement we drafted, hands shaking so hard the paper audibly rustled. He didn't look up the entire time. I watched the judge instead. You can tell, sometimes, when someone's seen this particular brand of horror before. She kept her face careful and her questions simple. She gave us a temporary order on the spot, with a hearing scheduled for the permanent one in 2 weeks. That same night, a neighbor knocked to introduce himself. Sweet older guy with a potted basil plant he said he couldn't keep alive and wanted to donate to the cause. He left, we laughed, and then there was a soft tap on the door again. Not a knock. A tap. He froze. I looked through the peephole and didn't see anyone. When we opened it, there was a white gift bag with tiny blue socks printed on it. Inside, a crocheted blanket and a note that said, for our boy. Love, Mama. I don't know how to explain the way that I felt. It was like one of those words that detonates but makes no sound. The blanket smelled faintly like perfume I'd gotten used to hating. When I shook it out, a little plastic tag chirped. He and I both looked at each other like we'd heard a gun cock. He pulled the knitting apart inch by inch until he found it, a tiny air tag stitched into the corner, thread matched to the yarn so closely you had to squint to see the different sheen. We didn't even argue about whether we were being dramatic. He put the tag in his toolbox, closed the lid, and carried it down 3 flights to his trunk. I called the non-emergency line and my voice shook so badly the dispatcher asked if I needed medical. The officer who came out took it seriously. He took pictures, took the air tag, and told us to bring it to the hearing. He told us to keep the note. He told us to get doorbell cameras and keep logging everything. I had a panic cry in the bathroom after he left and then made spaghetti because what else do you do? I stood there stirring red sauce with my hands still trembling. She broke into his work next. Not actually broke in, Just walked in like a customer and then cornered him at the end of his shift when he came out from the back. His manager told me later that she kept calling him baby in front of 2 coworkers and my man, like it was a big joke, like he should be flattered. He told her, in a voice everyone in the break room heard, "You can't be here," and she laughed and told him not to be dramatic. Security walked her outside, and she teared up and said she just wanted to kiss his face, and I guess the look on his face shut them all up. HR put a notation in his file for safety and emailed me a copy of the report for the court. He came home and cried in the shower with the water running so hot the mirror cracked with steam. And then, because life doesn't pause for the worst parts, we had our next ultrasound. Our son yawned. I swear to God he yawned, and both of us went silent in a way that felt sacred. On the way home, he pulled into a gas station and didn't get out. He turned the car off and put his head on the steering wheel. "I need to tell you about the banging day," he said. He said it like he was about to jump. He still didn't say everything. He said enough. He said she'd been texting him from her room that morning, about breakfast, stupid stuff, nothing, but in that whiny tone she gets, and then she'd opened her door and waved him in. He went. He said he always went. He said she started in about Christmas, like he told me, but then she got close. He demonstrated with his hand how she does it when she wants him within reach, 2 fingers crooked, tiny motion, like calling a dog. He said he tried to keep space between them, but she took his wrist and pulled him against the wall. His shoulder hit first. That was the bang. Then the headboard of her bed when she followed him when he slipped. He said, "She says I'm being bad if I don't answer right away." He said, "If I keep my voice even, she calms down." So he said whatever she told him to say. "Yes, ma'am." He said it to survive. He said he didn't have sex with her. He said she tried to put her mouth on his neck and he shoved her and she grabbed his shirt, and that when he left her room he could hear the TV like 1,000 miles away and he was shaking so hard he thought he'd drop the bowl. He said he showered because he felt like his skin wasn't attached to him. He said he brought me cereal because it was the only thing he could make with his hands trembling and because he couldn't stand the idea of staying downstairs long enough to fry bacon with her. Door right there. I believed him. That belief has teeth and it hurts sometimes because I also remember the sounds I heard and the way every hair on my arm stood up like I was in an electrical storm. But I believed him, and I watched his face as he said it, and I listened to how the words tumbled out like something finely dislodged, and I believed him. When he finished, he turned his face toward the window like he couldn't stand me seeing him. A guy pumped gas next to us and made eye contact with me over the roof of his car, and it was the strangest thing, 2 worlds layered over each other. Outside, people buying Takis and lottery tickets. Inside, my boyfriend telling me his mother put him against a wall and taught him to say yes ma'am when he wanted to run. His therapist set him homework, call an aunt he trusted and ask her what she remembers. He picked his mom's sister. We met her at a diner off the highway with waitresses who called everyone Han and used more coffee than water to wipe the counter. She hugged him like she was sorry and hadn't earned the right to say it. She didn't make us ask. She talked. She told us there had been a CPS call when he was 8, back when the hair incident happened. She said the pediatrician made the report, and CPS came out, but by then their mom had cleaned the house, put on her church voice, and told them the Brazilian hair trick story like she genuinely believed it was a normal thing mothers do. She said the case was unfounded. She said she hated herself for not pushing harder, but that their mom was good at switching faces, tears when she needed them, anger when tears didn't work. She said, she made him her husband, in a small, flat voice, looking at her coffee cup. She said she used to tell her, let him be a boy, and their mom would accuse her of jealousy, of wanting him for herself. She said their mother had her own history with their father, that he was, in her exact words, not safe, and that no one talked about it because back then your business was your business and secrets were currency. He stared at the sugar caddy like he could set it on fire with his eyes. We left with a Tupperware of banana bread and the kind of silence that's heavy and sad instead of scary. It was a relief to have confirmation and a grief I didn't know where to put. The night before the restraining order hearing, she called from another unknown number, and he answered because he was done hiding. He put it on speaker, thumb hovering over the record button, and didn't talk until she did. She started with a long inhale like she'd been running. I can't sleep without you breathing, she said. Don't do this to me. He said her name. He said, this is done. She tried laughter and then crying and then that childish lilt that makes my skin crawl. Just come lay with me so I can fall asleep, she whispered. 5 minutes. He said, this is abuse, and she went quiet for a beat so long I thought the call dropped. Then she said, don't say that. It came out like a hiss. After everything I gave you. He hung up. We sat in the silence afterward like it was a third person sitting on the couch. We emailed the audio file to his therapist and printed the transcript for court. She showed up to the hearing in a beige cardigan like she was there to read the minutes at a PTA meeting. She didn't look at me. She looked at him. When the judge asked her to respond to the petition, she put on that soft voice and said she didn't understand why we were making such a big deal. The judge asked her about the air tag. She actually smiled and said she just wanted to keep them safe. Then the judge asked her about the call, and something in her face slipped. She said, he knows I need him to sleep. He's always been she cut herself off like she'd walked off the cliff she didn't see. I watched the judge's mouth go into a tighter line. We left with a 1-year order. She's barred from contacting either of us or coming within 100 yards of our home or his job. The relief hit me in the parking lot so hard my legs shook. He sat on the curb and put his head in his hands and laughed, one of those weird, breathless laughs that sound way too close to crying. We got cameras. We changed his number again. He told his manager the order was in place and forwarded it to HR. We started deleting and blocking and then deleting and blocking again, and every time we did it got a little easier to breathe. Then we had a night where the pull hit him like a riptide. It was 1:13 a.m. I know because I checked the clock every 30 seconds. He paced the apartment like a caged thing, then stopped at the nursery door and put his palm flat against the frame. "What if I call her just once," he said. "Just to hear what she says." It's the kind of sentence you can't meet with logic. I felt the fear slam through me anyway. "If you call," I said, very slowly, because I could feel both of us teetering on a ledge, "I will have to protect my son. I will leave and I won't come back." It was the ugliest truth I've ever said. His face went slack for a second and then the craving passed. I watched it happen. He sat down on the carpet in the nursery we hadn't even painted yet and cried into his hands. Then he crawled over to me and put both hands on my belly and whispered, "I'm going to be your dad." Not her son. Your dad. We started painting the next afternoon because it felt like pointing our bodies toward the future and saying this way. He wanted dinosaurs. He never had a themed bedroom. He told me that like he was confessing to a crime, a weird little shame that made me want to cry and laugh at the same time. I ordered a roll of stick-on dinosaur decals that arrived in a tube, and we sat on the floor and stuck them up too high and then too low and then just right. He got green paint on his cheek and didn't notice for an hour. When he finally saw it in the bathroom mirror, he laughed like a normal 23-year-old. His therapist gave us a couples session. He looked me in the eye and said, in front of a third person, "You didn't imagine it. I made you feel crazy because I didn't know how to say the truth." I said, "I walked into a nightmare and you didn't warn me." He nodded. He said, "I wanted you so badly I let you step on a landmine." The therapist asked him to write a letter to the baby about the cycle ending with him. He read it to me on our couch. "You won't carry my secrets," he read. "You won't be my shield. You will be a child." I didn't even try to pretend I wasn't crying. We thought maybe, with the order in place, we could sink into something like normal. Then a box showed up at our door from a big online store, no gift tag, addressed to my boyfriend. I opened it because it was heavy and I needed to know what kind of heavy. Inside, a breast pump, off our registry. My heart went ice cold. I hadn't sent the registry to anyone but my sister and 2 friends. We checked the order history. It was tied to a brand new email with her name in it in reverse. "You're not supposed to have this," he said, as if the object itself were an intrusion. He taped it shut and drove it to a friend's house to hold until after the baby comes because the idea of it sitting in our apartment made him feel like she could see through our walls. We ripped the registry down that night. If you're reading this and you've thought about making a registry before you have your village set, learn from me. Lock it down. Password it. Vet the list like it's a guest list to your life. The aunt called again to check on him. She said she told their mother she was done, that she was choosing the living now. I like that phrase. Choosing the living. It sounds like something you do at a fork in the road where one path is soft and mossy and the other is a pit. She asked if we'd want her at the baby shower, if we have one. I said maybe a tiny one, here, with 3 people, no surprises. She said she'd bring a lasagna and sit in the corner and be thankful for air. We had a small scare last week, some spotting that sent us to the ER in the middle of a storm. In the triage chair he put his forehead on my shoulder and held my hand so tight it hurt. Our son was fine. The monitor made that galloping sound and I swear I saw something wordless in his face collapse and rebuild into something new. We drove home at midnight through streets that looked washed clean, and he told me, out of nowhere, I remember being little and bringing her a glass of water in bed. Like that was my job. I remember being so proud. He said it like confession and mourning and wonder, all at once. He said, "I don't want our son to ever feel proud of making me feel better. I want him to go play. If you're waiting for a tidy bow, there isn't one." I still jump when my phone buzzes. He still sometimes stares at the door like it's a test he might fail. But she hasn't been back, and the cameras haven't caught her, and the phone has been quiet since the order. He goes to therapy twice a week. He wrote a list and put it on the fridge of the things he's allowed to do without asking anyone. Sleep in if he's off, wear headphones, shower with the door unlocked. It looks silly written down until you realize he never got to just be. The nursery is green and the dinosaurs are crooked in a way that makes me smile every time I look. At our last appointment, the doctor put gel on my belly and he said, "Hey, buddy," and our son kicked back like he heard him. He put his forehead on my stomach and laughed. And then we went home, and I made dinner in a kitchen that has a cabinet door that doesn't hang off its hinges, and he did the dishes afterward even though I told him the baby and I had decided we should go lay down and be worshipped. He rolled his eyes and kissed the top of my head and said, "Go. I'll bring you ice cream." It's not the ending I thought I would write when I was lying in that bed listening to the banging and trying to convince myself I was crazy. There will be more hard things. Court again, probably. Therapy that peels old scabs. Nights where the pull scratches at him from the inside. But for the first time in months, maybe years. I believe him when he says he wants out. I believe us when we say we're building something different. I believe our boy will be born into a house where he is a child, not a salve. I don't know what to call the feeling that gives me. Maybe it's just breathing. Maybe it's what the house sounds like in the middle of the night when it's truly, finally, quiet.